As soon as I see someone jump on the line, we will be hearing that welcome message right now. There we go. Good evening and welcome to tonight's telephone town hall with your Maryland State Delegate, Jeff Waldstreicher. My name's Kim and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event. We'll be discussing what's at stake in this election and why Jeff needs your support tomorrow on Election Day. We'll begin in just a moment and we're excited to have you join us tonight. Before we begin, a few quick points to make. Right now, we're in the process of dialing out to thousands of people, so just stay on the line and we'll be hearing from Delegate Waldstreicher shortly. Also, we want to hear from you. If you'd like to ask a question or share your thoughts on issues that matter to you, please press 0 on your telephone keypad and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. Again, press 0 to ask a question or make a comment. I'm going to go over this one more time for the people who just joined us. So good evening and welcome to tonight's telephone town hall with your Maryland State Delegate, Jeff Waldstreicher. My name is Kim and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event. We'll be discussing what's at stake in this election and why Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher needs your support tomorrow on Election Day. We're going to begin in just a moment and thanks for joining us. Right now, we're in the process of dialing out to thousands of people, so just stay on the line and we'll hear from Jeff shortly. Also, if you want to ask a question of Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher, please press 0 at any time during this event. Again, press 0 at any time to ask a question or make a comment. And now, without further delay, here is Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher.
Well, thank you, Kim. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Waldstreicher, and I'm honored to be your Maryland State Delegate. As you might imagine, with the election tomorrow, a lot of folks have questions before they go and vote. House of Delegates is not exactly an election that you see advertisements on TV or the like. And so I want to make sure that I was accessible to you this evening to answer any questions you have. The questions can be about your neighborhood, about constituent service issues, about big issues like education or transportation. Whatever you want to talk about tonight, I'm here to help answer your questions. So thank you again. I'm glad you're joining us live. Let's go ahead and start with some of those questions, Kim.
Okay, sounds great. Well, we want to go to we're going to go to a question real quick from Faye from Silver Spring. But before we go to that question, I just want to remind you, if you have any questions tonight, please press 0 on your telephone keypad. So now we're going to go to Faye from Silver Spring. Faye, you're now live on the line.
Hello, Delegate Waldstreicher. I was wondering what your position on fracking is in the state of Maryland.
That's a great question, Faye. Thank you for that. So the short answer is I oppose fracking. I am no engineer, but from everything I've seen and all the research I've learned about, it's clear that fracking can have devastating consequences for the communities where it is located. And of course, more than just that community, it produces carbon pollution and the like and contributes to global warming. So I am continuing to fight for alternative energy in Maryland. I think that's the best way to go. As you probably know, we fought for wind energy in Maryland. That is currently in development, and those wind energy producing, the wind energy is being produced right now and is happening here in Maryland. I also believe strongly in solar and geothermal and all of the above strategy in Maryland. And I think that's the direction we move in, not fracking or conventional energy here in Maryland.
Great, thank you so much. Again, everyone, you are on a live telephone town hall with Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher. If you'd like to ask a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad. Again, press 0 on your telephone if you'd like to ask a question. We're now going to go to Stan from Chevy Chase. Stan, you're now live on the line.
First, Delegate Waldstreicher, I want to thank you for all that you do. My question has to do with the status of the minimum wage bill.
That's a great question, Stan. Thank you. The minimum wage bill passed and has been signed by Governor O'Malley into law. That bill came before the General Assembly last session, and it is now law. What that does is it increases our minimum wage here in Maryland from $7.25 to $10.10. And that's a pretty dramatic increase. Maryland is leading the way when it comes to economic justice, and I'm proud that we're moving in that direction. As you may have heard with the minimum wage, throughout the legislative process, a couple things were taken out that we need to fix, and I'm excited to come back and do that. For example, we didn't raise the minimum wage for tipped workers. These are folks who work in restaurants, and we need to come back and make sure that happens. We also didn't raise the minimum wage for folks who are under a certain age, I believe under 21. And I want to make sure that folks who are under 21 also receive a minimum wage increase. So I'll be coming back next session and leading the charge. So we've made outstanding progress when it comes to the minimum wage in Maryland. We have more to do, and I'm going to be at the forefront of that.
Great, thank you so much. We want to move to our first poll question from the audience. So you guys can respond to this question by just pressing a number on your telephone keypad. We want to know that, Jeff is running for re-election, so we can continue to fight for you as delegate. Can Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher count on your vote tomorrow on Election Day? Please press 1 if you'll vote for Jeff. Please press 2 if you're undecided. Please press 3 if you've already voted. And please press 4 if we can't count on your support. I'll repeat those answers one more time, or those options one more time. Please press 1 if you'll vote for Jeff. Please press 2 if you're undecided. Please press 3 if you have already voted. And press 4 if we can't count on your support. Those are going to tally for a little while, so thank you all for responding to that question. We now want to go to our next question from the audience. So our next question is going to be from Deborah from Chevy Chase. Deborah, you're now live on the line.
Hello, Deborah Valmer speaking, and thank you, Delegate Waldstreicher, and you can depend on my vote. This is an issue that's really below the radar screen because it only affects people who a couple of years ago opted out of getting a smart meter from Pepco. And I know that the legislature tried hard to put the brakes on Pepco, but and the Public Services Commission let them, basically said they could go ahead and charge these fees for people who don't opt back in. But the fees are truly outrageous, $75 plus $14 a month. It added to the electric bill, and most people don't know this because most people have the smart meters. Some people do have health concerns about the meters. Some people feel that there are privacy issues. I know that the legislature's not in session right now, but will you use the bully pulpit and put some pressure on Pepco in these few days we have between the time of the primary and when this deadline kicks in, which is July 1st? If we don't tell Pepco
Right.
we will take a smart meter by July 1st, they're going to assess these fees.
That's a great question. Thank you, Deborah. Deborah brings up an important point. A lot of policy related to energy and Pepco is not made by the legislature, and is instead made by the Public Service Commission, which is our commission that we've set up to help regulate the utility monopolies in Maryland. A lot of folks, as Deborah mentioned, have concerns related to the smart meters that have been installed. And the PSC did what I think was the right thing, which is to allow people to opt out of smart meters if they have certain concerns related to those smart meters. But what they did do that I thought was a mistake was they required people to pay to opt out, and that payment is a monthly fee, which over time can be quite excessive. If folks have strong concerns about smart meters or otherwise particularly sensitive to environmental issues related to smart meters, they should be able to document that concern and opt out without cost. There has been a bill on this, as Deborah mentioned. I think that bill will come forward next year, and it's certainly something I can look at and likely support because I think smart meters on net are environmental positive. They save energy, but folks who do have environmental concerns, those concerns should be treated seriously, and folks should have the ability to opt out without additional cost. Good question, Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Again, everyone, you are on a live telephone town hall with Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher. Again, you can press 0 at any time if you'd like to ask a question. Again, press 0 at any time if you'd like to ask a question. We're now going to go to Margaret from Wheaton. Margaret, you're now live on the line.
Hi, Delegate Waldstreicher. Thank you very much for hosting this. I think it's a great idea. Really use the technology. My question is about walkable communities. It seems like this whole idea has passed Wheaton by, and that it's not a push for us at all. You know, I was very disappointed that the bike share never came to Wheaton. It of course comes to Bethesda, and it seems like we're always the stepchild when certainly our population here is a population that needs things like bike share and walkable communities. I mean, we've had so many accidents on Veers Mill Road, and putting up a stoplight was a very good solution. However, it's not a walkable community. You have to traverse that street several times if you want to use the sidewalk. And this is a real issue for people also who have children who are walking to school. I know you have children, so I was hoping you could speak a little to this initiative, walkable community.
That's a great question. Yes, thank you for that. Well, first of all, let me start with this. I'm from Wheaton. I've always paid close attention to Wheaton. My campaign office last cycle was in Wheaton, and I'm in Wheaton frequently. And so I understand and empathetic with the concern that Wheaton doesn't get the attention it deserves. But at least from me and your other delegates and your state senator, that's not the case. We pay close attention to Wheaton. Last week, the Wheaton Urban District Advisory Board held a walking tour of Wheaton, which I was proud to participate in. And all the points that you make are points that were visible to me on the walking tour, which is that Wheaton redevelopment needs to be sped up, and it needs to be transformed in a way that is walkable and friendly to pedestrians and families. And as you mentioned, I have 3 little kids. Getting around Wheaton on foot is very difficult. Even with a stroller can be very difficult. And so as we look to redevelop Wheaton, changing it into a walkable community that serves the residents who live there will be key. Now, I know a lot of folks are a little bit scared of redeveloping Wheaton. They say, well, we want Wheaton to be Wheaton. We don't want Wheaton to be Bethesda. We don't want Wheaton to be downtown Silver Spring. But I have every faith that as we redevelop Wheaton, it will retain its Wheaton character. And certainly there are steps that the county government can take and we in the state government can take to help help benefit the businesses, the small businesses, the restaurants that are there already, so that they can come out of the redevelopment in a way that supports their bottom line and serves the community around them. So I am absolutely paying a ton of attention to Wheaton. It's my former home. I love it very much. I'm there frequently, and I want to redevelop it in the same way you do.
Great, thank you so much. Again, everyone, please press 0 if you have a question. We want to now go to Flora from Silver Spring. Flora, you're now live on the line.
Hi, Delegate Waldstreicher. This is Flora from Silver Spring. Can you tell me if you support universal pre-kindergarten?
It's a great question, Flora. Earlier in the last question, I mentioned my kids. So my oldest are twins. They're 4 and a half, and my youngest is just turned 1. And the 4-and-a-half-year-old twins are in preschool, and I've seen as they've blossomed because of preschool. And I always thought of preschool as a place to play, but really it's also a place to learn. And they've got a great start when it comes to kindergarten, and they'll likely be attending kindergarten in a couple of years. Not everyone has that opportunity. And there are a lot of children, unfortunately, that start kindergarten behind the curve. And 12 years later, they're not able to make up that time. And so we need to make sure that we provide universal pre-K in Maryland. As you know, all the gubernatorial candidates have come out in favor of universal pre-K in one way or the other. I support the most robust plan, including both 3- and 4-year-olds, and making sure it's universal and affordable for everyone. So I've seen this in my own family. My kids have benefited from it. I want to make sure all our kids in Montgomery County can benefit from universal pre-K as well. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, everyone, you're on a live telephone town hall with Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher. We want to now go to John from Chevy Chase. John, you're now live on the line.
Jeff, I'd like to know what major committees you serve on and what role you play on those committees. So much of what goes down in the House of Delegates depends on what happens behind the scenes in those committees. Thank you.
Right. Great question, John. So for folks on the line, Maryland is the only state in the union where members sit on only one committee. And that's great because it encourages specialization. So I sit on the Judiciary Committee, and that's the only committee that I sit on. and I'm proud to be one of the subcommittee chairs on judiciary, and that allows me to be behind the scenes helping to shape the policy that comes out of our committee. My committee, and of course the Senate counterpart of my committee as well, we're the committee that put out the end of the death penalty in Maryland, which I'm extremely proud of, as our death penalty was a racially biased anachronism. We're also the committee that put out marriage equality, which is certainly one of the most important things I will ever vote for in the Maryland General Assembly. And after Sandy Hook, my committee was one of the committees that led the charge to pass the strictest gun safety bill in the nation. And so I'm incredibly proud to serve on the Judiciary Committee. I was endorsed by the Washington Post, and in that endorsement they mentioned specifically some of the work I've done on the committee. That's where, as you mentioned, John, the real work of Annapolis gets done. And I've really enjoyed my stay on the Judiciary Committee, and I'm proud of the work that we've put out.
Great, thank you so much. We want to go to our next question, but just before we go to that, a reminder, everyone, please press 0 on your telephone if you'd like to ask a question. We're now going to go to Penny from Kensington. Penny, you are now live on the line.
Hi, Jeff. This is Penny in Kensington, and my children have graduated from the public school system in special education. I would like to know if you will be supporting a burden of proof bill next term for families of children with special needs in Montgomery County or in the Maryland school system.
That's a great question, Penny. Thank you for the question. So this issue is personal to me. My sister is disabled, has a developmental disability, went through MCPS, and I saw as the system struggled to meet her needs. And fortunately, since then, the system has improved, but we know that parents go through a lot of rigmarole to make sure that their special education children get the education they deserve. And in fact, not only deserve, it is constitutionally required of us in Maryland, and that's a good thing. So the question is related to a burden of proof bill, where we shift the burden of proof away from parents back on the system. And I think there are merits in the bill. We have to look closely to make sure we don't accidentally create unintended consequences where teachers don't have the time to teach because they're too worried about the burden of proof bill. But in concept, making sure that the school system, the folks with the most knowledge and most expertise about our educational system have the obligation to provide our education to everyone, including special education, is something I can definitely support. I think with this bill, we're going to find that it's going to move through the legislative process, and we're going to find consensus between the teachers, the school system, and our special education parents, and that's the right thing to do.
Great, thank you so much again, everyone. You're on a live telephone town hall with Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher. Jeff, we've been getting a lot of questions tonight from people who want to know about what you've been doing, the work you've been doing on the environment, specifically on the Chesapeake Bay. So they want to know what you've been doing to protect the Chesapeake Bay.
That's a great question. Thank you, Kim. So Maryland is unique. Maryland actually has more shoreline than California, and it's because we have all these inlets related to the Chesapeake Bay. We have a lot of shoreline here in Maryland, and the Chesapeake Bay is really a treasure of our state that we have to protect. And so one of the biggest things that we've done is we've created a specific fund to help clean up the Chesapeake Bay, and it's called the Chesapeake Bay Trust. And it is essentially a lockbox within our state budget that goes directly to cleaning up our Chesapeake Bay and restoring it for our watermen, for our recreation, and just because it's the right thing to do for us, for our children, for our grandchildren. I also want to give a quick shout out to one of my colleagues. So as many of you know, you have 3 state delegates. I serve proudly with Delegate Al Carr and Delegate Ana Sol Gutierrez. Delegate Carr sits on the Environmental Matters Committee, and he's been a leader when it comes to stormwater regulation. So when it rains outside, a lot of the pollutants that are on the ground get washed into the Chesapeake Bay. And that creates dangerous kill zones for fish and otherwise pollutes our bay. And Delegate Carr has been a great leader when it comes to stiffening our runoff rules and making sure that that pollution doesn't get into the bay. And that's one of the most important things we can do.
Great, thank you so much. Again, everyone, Please press 0 at any time if you'd like to ask a question. Again, press 0 at any time if you'd like to ask a question. Jeff, we've also been getting some questions about school construction. Can you talk a little bit about school construction that's going on?
Sure. Well, school construction has been a hot button issue this election season, and the reason is because the need is so great. Over the past 8 years, we've invested more than $1 billion in school construction, and that's billion with a B. In no other 8-year period have we invested that much. But nonetheless, our school system remains bursting at the seams, and we can do more. And so my plan over the next 4 years is to continue to invest record amounts in school construction so that our kids can get out of learning trailers, back in the classroom, and we can also reduce class sizes at the same time. We also need modernization of our schools. A lot of our schools are aging. A lot of the technology that was placed in our schools doesn't fit the needs of today's children as they learn. And so not only do we need the dollars for school construction for capacity, we also need it for technology as well. Now, let me tell you about one bill that you'll hear about, and maybe you've heard a little bit about it already. It's a bill that would essentially allow Montgomery County to borrow using Maryland's bonding authority. This was a bill that failed last year, but as you probably know, in Annapolis, sometimes big, important, expensive bills take a couple years to pass. This passed it for Baltimore City. It took 3 years. I think we're going to do it in 2. So next year I look forward to passing this important school construction bonding authority for Montgomery County that will really allow us to address our capacity crisis.
Got it. Thank you so much, Jeff. We're going to go to our next question. We have Betsy from Kensington. Betsy, you're now live on the line.
This is Betsy Stewart. Jeff, thank you for holding this. My concern is for the Costco gas station at Wheaton and the effects they'll have on the neighbors there, as well as Silver Creek and the runoff water that could contaminate our water, drinking, and otherwise.
Thank you, Betsy. So the question was related to the proposal to build a 16-bay mega gas station at the border between Wheaton and Kensington, not far from the mall. Let me state my position on this clearly. I oppose the Costco mega gas station. It is right near a school that serves folks with developmental disabilities, very serious developmental disabilities. It is right near a pool where kids congregate and play all summer. And it's right near a neighborhood, Kensington Heights. Folks shouldn't be forced to breathe that gasoline and those fumes all day and all night. Costco is a wonderful company. They pay their employees union wages, and having Costco in Wheaton has been a great benefit. But a gas station that's essentially designed as a loss leader to bring people into Costco is not what we need. Costco has been given options to relocate the gas station so that it's not close to the neighborhood, it's not close to the special ed school, it's not close to the pool. They have rejected those, and my hope is that the appeals board where this project is currently located will reject Costco's application for a 16-bay gas station.
Great, thank you so much. Again, everyone, you're on a call with Delegate Jeff Waldstreicher, and please press 0 at any time if you'd like to ask a question. We want to now go to Jordan from Silver Spring. Jordan, you're now live on the line.
Hi, my name is Jordan. I live in downtown Silver Spring. I have a family member that was a victim of domestic violence, and I just want to hear more about what you plan to do as it relates to that issue.
Great. Thanks, Jordan. Important question. So the issue of domestic violence comes in front of me on the Judiciary Committee, and we've made great strides. And in fact, last session, we passed an important bill related to domestic violence in Maryland. So to get a protective order in Maryland, you used to essentially have to pass a very high bar. But protective orders aren't really, it shouldn't have to be like reasonable doubt. The standard to get a protective order shouldn't be insurmountable, and it was for many of our victims of domestic violence. And so what we did was we passed a bill that lowers the standard for a protective order so that victims of domestic violence can get into court quickly, get the protection they deserve, and to make sure that they have the legal document that they need to protect themselves. And while I have a moment here, I want to thank the Attorney General, Doug Gansler, and the Lieutenant Governor, Anthony Brown, both of whom were instrumental in passing this important domestic violence legislation. We also did another neat little thing last session that folks really didn't hear about, but it's an important bill. Domestic violence, when it takes place in front of children, is terrible. And of course, all domestic violence is terrible. But a lot of these kids are scarred for life, and that could have consequences down the road. And so we made domestic violence that occurs in front of children a separate punishable offense, to recognize that the severity of domestic violence is worse when it occurs in front of the children. And that bill didn't get a lot of press, but it's one of the ones I'm most proud of passing last legislative session. Of course, there's a little more work to do. A lot of our domestic violence laws only apply to people who live together, but we also know that domestic violence takes place in dating relationships where folks don't live together, and we need to make sure that folks in dating relationships have just as much protection from the state of Maryland as folks who live together.
Great, thank you so much. Again, everyone, you can press 0 at any time if you'd like to ask a question. Again, press 0 if you have any questions. We now want to go to Kyle from Kensington. Kyle, you're live on the line.
Hi, my name's Kyle from Kensington. I've heard a lot of cases of animal abuse in Baltimore recently, and as a dog owner, I don't really like to hear about such things. What are your thoughts on animal rights in general in our state?
Well, I'm so pleased that we're getting all these great, fantastic questions tonight, and that people care deeply about issues that I also care deeply about. So I've been one of the leaders in the General Assembly when it comes to animal rights, and we've made good progress in Maryland. Let me tell you about an important bill that we passed last year. When someone abuses an animal, that animal often comes into the possession of the state, which obviously has to remove the animal from the abusive home. But the burden of the care for that animal then goes to the taxpayers. And for dogs and cats, that's significant, but for horses, and I learned a lot about abuse of horses, it gets very expensive. And that cost shouldn't be borne by the taxpayers. That cost should be borne by the person who abused that animal, whether it's horses, dogs, or cats, or really any animal. And we passed a bill that said that if you abuse or neglect animals, and the state has to then take care of that animal, that the cost will go onto the abuser, not onto the taxpayer. And here's another bill that we passed. This was another good one. A lot of animal abusers, after their punishment is over, they can go buy another animal. What we did was we banned folks who are convicted of abusing animals from future ownership of animals. And that will go a long way to reducing abuse. So there will always be incidents, and I've heard of the exact same thing that you're referring to, the incidents in Baltimore, and they are abhorrent. But fortunately now, because of the progress we've made over the past few years, the protections are in place to help prevent that from happening again. Now, can we do more? Absolutely. A lot of folks have talked about creating a registry of animal abusers to help better track, to make sure that animal abusers don't have future access to animals, and some other steps we can take. But we're going on the right path in Maryland.
Great, thank you so much. Jeff, we had a question from Mary a few minutes ago, and it looks like, unfortunately, Mary had to jump off the call, but we've gotten a few questions like this, so I really wanted to address it. We've been getting questions, especially from her. She lives in Rosemary Hills, and there are a lot of roads, she said, they were not looking so great.
Right.
And they were asking about, these people on the call were asking what you've been doing with roads particularly, and what Maryland's going to be doing moving into the future. Yeah,
that's a great question. Well, let's start with this. As your state delegate, I'm always happy to help, and constituent service is really at the core of what my office does. My office line, and let me just give this out over the phone here, my office line is 301-858-3130, and here's my personal cell, which you're welcome to have. It's 301-221-2696. And so we deal with a lot of the big substantive issues of the day that we've been talking about tonight, but we also deal with small issues, potholes, roads, things like that. And so with specific reference to Rosemary Hills, that's a great question. In fact, I've driven in that neighborhood recently. We had some town forums at the Cofield Center over there in Littonsville, not far from Rosemary Hills, and I've noticed the same thing about the roads. One of the things I do on a daily basis is interface with our county officials. most of the neighborhood roads that you guys travel on a day-to-day basis are county roads. And so when I get a call about specific roads, I call my counterparts in the county and say, listen, you need to take a look. And oftentimes they'll go out there and they'll say, yep, you're exactly right, there's a problem, we'll get this fixed. Sometimes they're state roads, and for state roads, I have direct jurisdiction, and I call our State Highway Administration, and they are incredibly responsive on making repairs and fixes. And just so you know, the difference between a county road and a state road is pretty easy to figure out. State road is a road with a number, like Georgia Avenue, which is 97, or Connecticut, which is 185. So state roads are in my direct jurisdiction, but like I said, I'm happy to help with county roads as those issues pop up.
Great, thank you. Jeff, would you mind repeating those numbers for the people who might not have gotten them on the call?
Thank you, Kim. So my office line in Annapolis is 301-858-3130. And if you call that line, you get Ellen, and many of you know Ellen. She does a fantastic job in my office. She's always friendly and responsive, and you should feel like you can rely on her to get your problems fixed. My personal cell phone, which goes directly to my cell phone, is 301-221-2696. Again, 301-221-2696. I've given that out a couple times during this campaign, and occasionally people will call and say, is this really your cell phone? I say, yep, it's my cell phone. Everyone on this call should definitely feel free to use it.
Great, thank you so much. Jeff, unfortunately, it looks like we've almost run out of time, so unfortunately we won't be able to get to everyone's questions tonight. But just stay on the line. You'll be able to leave a message at the end of this call. So again, everyone, just stay on the line, and you'll be able to leave a message at the end of this call. But Jeff, I wanted to pass it back to you for some closing remarks. So did you have anything that you wanted to close with?
I do. Thanks, Kim. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this telephone town hall this evening. I hope you found it helpful. Tomorrow is the election, and it's an important one. And I know much of your attention has been probably focused towards the top of the ballot. But nonetheless, the House of Delegates race is an important one and affects all of us in our daily lives. So I've been honored to serve as your delegate over the last 8 years. I hope you feel like I've been responsive and voted the right way on some of the important bills that come before me. Make sure to vote tomorrow. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and I hope I can earn your vote for re-election. Thank you again.
Thanks so much. Again, everyone, remember, you can just leave a message if you stay on to the end of this call. Thanks so much. Have a great night.